Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. So this is the second time speaking at API World, and Finicity is we are an open banking platform, and we've been at this now for about 20 years. And the industry of consumer permissioned data has really changed a lot since we started the company. So we started Finicity, my partner and I, 20 years ago, and we picked probably the worst time in history to start a company in September 2000. I remember being on Sand Hill Road doing fundraising, and literally they were putting up canceling meetings real time because the market was collapsing. Actually the week that we were raising money, it was a crazy experience. But we had a vision of building a tool, a personal finance tool that would help people make better spending decisions at the point of sale. And in the day, Quicken was really the big product on the market. And so we envisioned a mobile-centric approach to budgeting, the idea of having your budget right there in the palm of your hand. And quickly as we were developing the product, we knew that we needed to get access to transaction data in more real time. Many of the budgeting apps of the day you had to manually upload like an OFX file or manually input your transaction data, and we knew that we needed to automate that process of gathering transactions. And so we actually went shopping. We found a partner that would enable us to build on top of the platform. And we started building integrations with financial institutions using data aggregation methods, and lots of different ways of doing that. But screen scraping is really the approach that it's genericized as screen scraping. When you log in to a bank website and with consumer credentials and go and get the data using one method or another. So we and several other players in the data aggregation space have really pioneered this concept of putting the consumer in the middle and enabling them to enable us to automate the collection of their transaction data. And we played in the direct-to-consumer space for a better part of 15 years. And with the birth of fintech, really the fintech term and the market investments into fintech starting in 2012, the idea of this fintech app that needed to use banking data to facilitate the use case started to take on new meaning and new scale. And so about 5 years ago, in 2015, we announced, or late 2014, we took the data aggregation capability that we built under our PFM. We slapped an API on top, put out our shingle B2B, and started to sell. And the last 5 years have just been a really crazy, amazing experience. Catching the wave of open banking and catching the wave of consumer permission data. And so I'm here today to really talk to you more at a high level and give you a kind of an update on what's going on in the world of open banking, primarily from a US perspective, but also we'll mention some of the context about Canada and some of the other markets, so you can have a flavor for how open banking is evolving and what some of the current issues are today. Before we go into the history, I wanted to just talk about some of the use cases and the outcomes for consumers that are enabled through open banking. So, one of the things that gets me up in the morning is this idea of consumer empowerment and the idea of financial literacy. So if we can help consumers and businesses make better decisions using their own data, then we're really providing a service to the world. And so, the experiences that consumers can have using open banking are pretty much consistent across the world. And as you see fintech and the growth of fintech in these other markets, you actually see that the use cases are extremely similar. So whether it's personal financial management, investment management, it's all kind of wrapped in what we call the PFM use case. Payments has been a really big deal in Europe with PSD2 and the open banking initiative in the UK, and then in the US, there's been this kind of an industry-driven approach, which we'll talk a little bit more about today, where we've created the financial data exchange to standardize the way that banks present that data to aggregators or third-party applications, and we're going to be going through that. So the outcomes here. So Finicity, for example, my company, we focus in the world of credit decisioning, and there are others that focus in payments and others that focus in PFM, and all of us generally can do some of the same things, but we've focused on helping to speed up the lending process. One of our clients is Rocket Mortgage, and so we've put some of the fuel, I guess you could say, in Rocket Mortgage, in helping to automate and digitize the data collection process. Experian Boost is another product where using the Finicity network of integrations with financial institutions, you can permission access to your data, and then we actually discover trade streams. So whether it's utilities, telcos, they just announced for Boost the ability to look at Netflix and other kind of subscriptions and use that data as positive trade line data to help to increase your score. So the Boost is really a credit score increase. And then, money management. So the only way that we're going to really move the ball forward when it comes to financial inclusion, financial literacy, and really make better financial experiences is really through this open banking trend. Long past are the days of a financial institution, a bank being everything to you as a consumer. And long past are the days that a bank can take a walled garden approach to providing services. Instead, the bank of the future is going to think of themselves as a platform and partner with the ecosystem to give their consumers access to some things that are native and other things that are held away. And it's through that fintech innovation using data aggregation capabilities like Finicity has that we're enabling these use cases. Just as a quick commentary, there are two really different models that are evolving in the world of open banking. One of them is a tops-down regulatory-driven approach, where regulators are mandating, or lawmakers and regulators are mandating that the banks open up APIs, and even to the point where you have state-sponsored, or they require the banks in the UK, the CMA 9, to pay for the open banking efforts to give consumers access to that data. The EU with PSD2 is another example where this is a tops-down approach, and there's been, obviously it gets the message out very quickly, but the implementation is still a work in progress. In the U.S. and now Canada, we took a different approach in that we Dodd-Frank Title 10, Section 1033, basically is a law that says that the consumer has the right to get access to their data, and that banks must make it easy to get access to that data. And so using that fundamental law, we have taken more of an industry-driven approach for a bottoms-up standardization. Back in the 90s, I worked for Palm and 3Com and was one of the founders of Bluetooth. And the Bluetooth model has been a really successful model in how we do standardization, where it's not just creating a spec and not just creating an implementation, but actually locking IP rights and locking branding rights tied to a certification of interoperability. And so you can join Bluetooth for free, you can pick up the spec, go build a product and get it tested, and then you can say that it's Bluetooth. FDX, the Financial Data Exchange, is similar, and that's really been kind of the driver in the US and Canada. The largest Canadian financial institutions and fintechs announced their participation in FDX just recently. So talking a little bit more about the Financial Data Exchange and is that, you have data recipients, you have data access platforms, which, have been called data aggregators in the past. You could think of them as data intermediaries. And then you have the data providers, which is the financial institutions. And so the important part of open banking globally, and really, how we think about it, is that we're truly putting the consumer in control of their data. And so the consumer is permissioning. So not only are they authenticating, so we've adopted the FAPI profile of the OpenID Foundation. So OpenID Connect with some increased security combined with consent management. So it's not only authenticating via OpenID Connect, but it's also taking the scopes that are part of OpenID to the next level and really deepening the tie between a use case of open banking and the actual data that's getting permissioned for that particular use case. And so that's the work that we're doing within the Financial Data Exchange, is that we're standardizing the authentication method, the authorization method. We're standardizing really the consent receipt and really enabling full right to be forgotten, right to erasure. So tying together this idea of open banking together with a consumer permission framework where consent drives the delivery of that data, and that data is then fully traceable through that ecosystem. And that's really the high level overview of the Financial Data Exchange. And so one of the, as you as developers are thinking about participating in this fintech, in this open banking ecosystem that's evolving in really any market in the world, some of the details that you should be mindful of is that in the world of data intermediaries, so data access platforms, the data quality is a big deal. So what we've done at Finicity is we have specifically gone after these direct data access agreements based upon the FDX standard, and we over 50% of our volume is flowing through FDX bank APIs. And so while we still have, and the industry still has the screen scraping approach where we collect credentials and use that as the mechanism to authenticate with the bank, there is a dramatic shift that's happening towards direct APIs, and that's an exciting direction. The other thing is in the world of open banking for credit decisioning, the question of can you just access the data and use it any way you want? Well, what we have proposed to the market and the industry is that falling under FCRA and having CRA protection is a very important aspect of participating in an open banking ecosystem, in that if the data that's being accessed is being used for credit decisioning, that you need to provide the consumer the ability to dispute the transaction. And so we've become a CRA as a result. Obviously next is data science and using models to create attributes that look at things like cash flow. So for the last over 10 years in the world of credit, they've been talking about the need to move, or at least to add cash flow analytics to the decisioning in determining whether you should give a loan. And so the cool thing about open banking and consumer permission is that we're actually enabling the consumer to permission their data, and then we're analyzing cash flow information to provide really better ability to pay and propensity to pay using cash flow. And so that layer of data analytics is a big side of that, and of course developer experience. And we think we have the best, and so you can go check us out. So we when we think about this convergence of open banking or data aggregation that's now called open banking, and consumer control and consumer data rights, and then kind of this universe of data privacy, all three of these galaxies are coming together. And so the data principles that we espouse are control, consumer control, security. So we need to make sure that we as an intermediary and our partners are able to to meet a certain bar when it comes to security. Data traceability is everything. I had an event where I was looking for a loan, and I went to this website that is a lending site, and I put all my information in the lending site, and they distributed my information to other lenders, and I mean I got inundated for weeks from different companies. And so this idea of your personal data being you provide it, it gets bought and sold and bought and sold. We really want to try to put pressure on that model and really enable that traceability and transparency of how the data is used, and enable control of the consumer, the data owner. And then, obviously access, that's part of the 1033 rules. So at a high level, and we only have a few more minutes left. Hopefully, I've given you a couple of thoughts about open banking. I think the biggest takeaways here are there are three universes that are colliding right now. You've got open banking, or this idea of banks provisioning APIs using a standardized API. You have data privacy regulations that GDPR, California Data Privacy Act, and federal standards that are in the works in the U.S. that are requiring us to think about data differently. You have digital identity, and generally you're seeing a shift in the mindset of consumers and businesses around, hey, that's my data. I want to be able to use that data, and I want to know where it's going. And I don't want you to buy and to sell my data. So these three things are happening. Financial data exchange is leading the way in the U.S. and Canada, and continuing to collaborate with these other markets. So open to questions, and I'm not sure exactly what the nature of the attendees are. If you're all developers or business folks, but hopefully that gives you a good overview of what's going on in the world of open banking. You can go to financialdataexchange.org. You can actually download a copy of the FDX spec there. And that's all I got. Questions?
I think we have one question about what is the COVID-19 impact?
Will you say that one more time?
What is the impact COVID-19 on open?
open banking. So, I mean, COVID-19 has actually driven digitization in a much broader and much faster pace. As you can imagine, the legacy methods of gathering data for underwriting, you can't walk. It's harder to walk into a branch and hand over documents. And so we've seen a massive uptick in our business during the COVID pandemic as financial institutions and lenders really move to more of a digital approach to consumer engagement.
I think we have another
Other
one.
questions?
Are there emergencies that will have further impact on banking?
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Sorry about that. Is there emerging technologies that will have further on open banking?
Is there technology that will have further impact on open banking? Is that what you asked?
That's correct.
I mean, I think it's very much a moving target. So Finicity, we were a founding steward of the Sovereign Foundation. We were a founder of the Trust Over IP Foundation. And so this world of digital identity is really another big trend that's happening. And so, I talk about the convergence, but if you take data privacy, digital identity, and open banking, and as they all come together, there's a lot of new tech in all of these domains that needs to be developed and pioneered. And so a lot of fun stuff happening there. But I think the work of FDX today and the current FDX 4.3 specification is state of the art, and it represents a great current version and trend. But these other models are coming.
Mm-hmm. We have one other. How do you expect open banking to evolve in 2021?
How do you expect? Say that again, Caitlin.
Open banking in 2021
to evolve. I mean, I think that my and really talked about that is that I think that open banking will take on definitively consent management and data traceability, and so consumer data rights combined with consumer data privacy, combined with digital identity, all of those are converging into some big changes in how consumers engage with financial institutions, and how the power and control that consumers will have in the future relative to their data that is currently locked away in different platforms. And the work that's happening within the financial data exchange and the financial industry is also a model of what is and or will be happening in other verticals, be it health or everything. So it's a very fun, interesting trend around putting the consumer in the middle of their data. Thank you for joining and taking the time. Appreciate it. Reach out to me if you've got other questions on LinkedIn. My email address is right there as well. Thank you.